I'm Simon Batterbury and I work at the University of Melbourne where I teach and research in geography and development studies and run an environmental master's program. At the time I was based in the UK, and this was really the epicenter of some of the research that went on, bringing together a lot of very interesting development research traditions into an approach which was visible in terms of a diagram, and it was taken up by DFID, the National Aid Agency, and from then on it's sort of spread in a rather viral fashion globally to NGOs and so forth. But the late 90s was a particular moment because I suppose because of the huge financial support given to the approach in DFID, and therefore a great interest amongst researchers and NGOs anxious to profit from that experience. But it only lasted until 2002. At that time, in 2002, which was a big moment in British politics and a change in DFID's priorities, livelihoods was very much de-emphasised at the national level as a framework for development. Jane Clark and others have written in our seminar series about some of the reasons. Some of those are internal to DFID, competition between economists and rural livelihood supporters. There was the new Paris Aid agenda. Britain needed to step up. We then had the Millennium Development Goals, which had to be addressed. Some of those took development much more into health and education sectors, and both of those weren't so keen on some of the rural-based sustainable livelihoods models and didn't feel they were quite as appropriate. And I'm sure there's other internal dynamics, but globally the approach has carried on despite that blip here in the UK. In my paper today I've suggested that there's a tendency to cycle through development paradigms much too quickly, and in this case we're probably guilty of having shifted the aid focus to national level priorities, Millennium Development Goals, meeting those, that's all fine, but at the same time direct project support to poorer people appears to have been less focused on by some of the bilateral donors, not so much in the NGO sector, but the big money sort of shifted to capacity building, good governance models and so forth. And certainly you need those two in parallel, and the reply I'd give for a country I know quite well, East Timor, is that that country on independence needed to support a good governance agenda because there had been no national government prior to 1999. It was under Indonesian control. But at the same time, in supporting capacity building amongst government cadres and so forth, there was an absence of direct support to poorer people in rural areas and small towns, and really the sustainable livelihoods agenda could have assisted very much at that point. It simply didn't in that country, and that's an example of how you need to keep those livelihood issues, I think, on the agenda and quite prominent in the general aid agenda, alongside obviously those other priorities.